Sam was staring at his phone at 11:47 p.m., rereading an email he'd already sent twice. Same message, different tone. The first one was sharp, the second one was professional, but somehow even colder. And now he was hovering over a third draft, telling himself, just one more sentence and this mess will go away. But the truth was, the email wasn't the real problem. Constant reaction, constant urgency, constant firefighting, and somehow he was still falling behind. If that feels familiar, you're going to love this. This is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. And what makes this book different isn't that it gives you tips from the inside out. By the end, you'll understand why some people stay calm while everyone else panics, why some people get results without burning out, and how to build relationships that don't feel like a constant tug of war. We're going to walk through every major habit and the big ideas that connect them, so you don't just recognize the concepts, you actually know how to use them. Now, before we touch a single habit, Covey makes you swallow a hard pill. They adjust the surface, they tweak the tone, they change the words, they try a new technique. The idea that success comes from image, style, and quick hacks. The deeper stuff, integrity, responsibility, long-term thinking, principles that don't change just because you're stressed. And here's what's wild. Covey says your results don't come from your intentions. They come from your paradigm. A paradigm is basically the lens you see life through. It's the default settings in your head. And if your paradigm is off, I'm sure you can work insanely hard and still end up in the wrong place. Because you're climbing fast on the wrong ladder. Covey tells a story that makes this point land like a punch. He's on a subway in New York, and it's calm. People are quiet. Then a man walks in with his kids, and the kids are loud, like chaos loud. They're grabbing papers, yelling, disturbing everyone. The dad sits down, shuts his eyes, and does nothing. Covey feels irritation rising. Finally, he says something like, "Can you control your children?" Their mother died about an hour ago. He doesn't even know what to think, and the kids don't know how to handle it either. Covey's entire emotional response flips. Same situation, same noise, same kids, new meaning. That's a paradigm shift. So here's the open loop you should hold on to. If changing your meaning can change your behavior that fast, what happens when you intentionally change your meaning about your whole life? That's where the habits come in. Covey organizes them like a ladder. First, you move from dependence to independence. That's the private victory. It's you mastering you. Then you move from independence to interdependence. That's the public victory. It's you becoming effective with people. And finally, you keep it all alive through renewal. So you don't build a great life and then collapse inside it. So let's start where the book starts. With the habit that flips the entire power dynamic in your life. Habit 1 is be proactive. And no, this does not mean be busy, bouncing off whatever hits you. Proactive means you choose your response. Covey leans on a powerful idea. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is your freedom. That's where you decide who you're going to be, even when you're under pressure. Most people don't use that space. They hand it away. Traffic makes them angry. A rude comment ruins their mood. A mistake makes them spiral. A boss's tone controls their entire day. Sam used to do that without noticing. Back when he was a project coordinator at a mid-sized company, he had a manager who loved last-minute emergencies. Friday at 4:30, the manager would drop a quick request that magically required the whole weekend. Sam would get that familiar heat in his chest, complain to his friends, and then do it anyway. Bitter, exhausted, resentful. One day, after another Friday ambush, Sam walked out to his car, slammed the door, and just sat there gripping the steering wheel. And he caught himself thinking, he's ruining my life. But it also felt heavy, because if he's ruining your life, what does that make you? A victim. Covey's way out of victimhood is a simple distinction. Your circle of concern versus your circle of influence. Circle of concern is everything you care about, the economy, other people's moods, company politics, the past, the future, things you can't control. Circle of influence is smaller. It's what you can actually affect. your choices, your attitude, your preparation, your communication, your boundaries. Reactive people camp in the circle of concern. They talk about what's wrong, they replay what happened, they blame, they wait. Proactive people invest in the circle of influence. They take responsibility for their part and act where action is possible. So Sam tried an experiment, just 1 week. Instead of complaining about his manager, he changed one thing he actually controlled: the conversation before Friday. On Tuesday, he walked into the manager's office with a printed timeline of deliverables. He pointed to the Friday rush pattern and asked calmly, "What's the best way to plan this earlier so it doesn't land last minute?" No sarcasm, no heat, just ownership. The manager didn't explode, he actually leaned in. They moved one recurring request to Thursday morning. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. That's the key. Proactivity doesn't require a miracle. It requires a move. It's like driving in heavy fog. You can't control the weather, but you can control your speed, your lane, and your attention. Reactive drivers blame the fog. Proactive drivers adjust. And here's the part most people get completely wrong. Proactivity isn't about never feeling anger or stress. It's about not letting those feelings drive the car. Okay, now once you stop reacting, you face a new problem. If you're not reacting, what are you actually aiming at? That's habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. This is the habit of personal leadership. It's deciding where you're going before you start sprinting. Covey explains that everything is created twice. First creation is mental, the plan, the vision, the blueprint. Second creation is physical, the execution, the building. If you don't do the first creation on purpose, you still do it but accidentally, based on other people's expectations, old programming, and whatever sounds urgent today. And Covey gives one of the most famous exercises in the whole book. He asks you to imagine your own funeral in a clarifying way. He asks, what would you want people to say about you? Your family, your friends, your coworkers, your community. Not the ones you claim, the ones you actually want your life to prove. Sam tried this on a random Sunday afternoon. He was sitting at his kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee and a piece of paper. He wrote 4 headings like family, friends, work, and personal. At first, he wrote generic stuff. Good guy, hard worker, kind, and felt how empty it sounded. So he forced himself to get specific. For family, he wrote, he was present. He didn't just live in the same house. He showed up emotionally. For friends, he wrote, he was reliable, not just fun when things were easy. For work, he wrote, he built people, not just projects. For personal, he wrote, he lived with integrity, even when nobody was watching. And then he looked at his actual calendar. And that's when it hit him. His calendar was telling a different story. His schedule was full of meetings, errands, scrolling, random chores, but almost nothing that matched what he said mattered. That's when habit 2 becomes real. Beginning with the end in mind isn't motivational, it's diagnostic. It reveals the gap between your stated values and your lived values. A kind of constitution for your life. Not a poster, a filter. So when you get an opportunity, a request, a distraction, you can ask one clean question, or away from it, think of it like a compass. A compass doesn't tell you how fast to walk. It just tells you what direction is true. Without that, you can walk hard all day and still be lost. Now you can probably guess what happens next. Once you know the end, you still have to deal with the daily chaos. That's habit 3. Put first things first. This is personal management. It's taking your vision and turning it into a life that actually follows it. And Covey's big move here is to expose how most people misuse time. Because you can't manage time, time keeps moving. The real challenge is managing yourself. Then he introduces the time management matrix. 2 variables define most activities: urgent and important. Urgent means it demands your attention now. Important means it actually matters for your long-term results and values. And that creates 4 quadrants. 1 is urgent and important. Crises, deadlines, fires. 2 is not urgent but important. Planning, relationships, prevention, learning, health. 3 is urgent but not important. Interruptions, some calls, some meetings, other people's priorities. 4 is not urgent and not important. Mindless distractions, busy work, escape. Here's the painful truth. Most people live in quadrant 1 and 3. They feel productive because they're moving fast, but they're constantly being pulled. Highly effective people build their life around Quadrant 2, and this is the part most people don't want to hear. Quadrant 2 doesn't scream, it whispers. It's easy to skip because it isn't urgent until it becomes a crisis. Skipping exercise isn't urgent until your health collapses. Skipping hard conversations isn't urgent until your relationship breaks. Skipping planning isn't urgent until your week turns into chaos. Sam learned this the hard way when he got promoted into a role where he had to lead a small team. At first, he felt proud, then terrified, because his days became a flood. Messages, requests, meetings, problems, people needing answers. He tried to prove his value by being available for everything. He responded instantly. He solved every issue. He jumped into every meeting. And after 3 weeks, he was exhausted. And weirdly, the team wasn't improving. Then he remembered Covey's idea and tried a different experiment. He blocked 1 hour every morning before everything for Quadrant 2 work. No calls, no inbox, no meetings. Just planning, thinking, coaching notes, and proactive problem prevention, like he was being irresponsible. By the 4th morning, something shifted. He started noticing patterns. The same questions kept coming from the same people. The same small issues kept becoming big issues because nobody owned the process. A shared checklist, a clear owner for each repeating task, and a weekly one-on-one with his 2 most overwhelmed teammates. Within 2 weeks, the urgent volume dropped. Because Sam stopped feeding urgency with constant reaction. It's like cleaning your house. If you only clean when guests are coming, you live in panic cleaning mode forever. The emergency clean becomes rare. That's put first things first. It's choosing the important before the urgent chooses you. Now, those first 3 habits are the private victory. They move you from dependence to independence. You stop blaming, you get a direction, you build discipline, but then reality hits. You can't work with people. That's why Covey shifts into the public victory. And the first habit there is the one that instantly exposes how you see the world. Habit 4 is think win-win. Covey says win-win isn't a technique. It's a paradigm. It's the belief that life doesn't have to be a fight where someone loses for you to succeed. And he breaks down common relationship paradigms. Win-lose is dominance. I win, you lose. Lose-win is submission. I lose, you win. Lose-lose is both people trying to hurt each other or refusing to cooperate. Win-win is mutual benefit, a solution that works for both. And there's also a higher form, win-win or no deal. If we can't find something fair, we don't pretend. We walk away respectfully. What makes win-win hard is that it requires 2 traits at once, courage and consideration. And courage without consideration becomes aggression. Consideration without courage becomes people-pleasing. Win-win lives in the balance. Sam had a situation that made this habit unavoidable. He was working with another department on a shared project. The other lead, a guy named Mark, had a style he'd push, pressure, and subtly blame. Every meeting felt like Mark was trying to win by making Sam look slow. Sam's first instinct was win-lose. He wanted to beat Mark, prove him wrong, make him look bad. Then Sam considered lose-win. Just agree, keep peace, get through it. But both options felt like poison. So Sam tried Covey's approach, not in the group, not as a public battle. And he opened with something that felt risky. He said, look, I think we both want this project to succeed. I also think the way we're interacting is making it harder. I want an outcome that works for both teams. And what, so we can build a plan that doesn't punish either side? Mark looked confused at first, then defensive. And here's where most people fail. They bail when the other person doesn't instantly cooperate. But Sam stayed. He asked questions. He listened. He repeated back what he heard. He clarified the real constraints Mark was under. And slowly, the truth came out. Mark was being squeezed by his director. He had an internal deadline that wasn't visible to Sam's team. He was panicking, and he was converting that panic into pressure. Once Sam understood that, he proposed a trade. Sam's team would deliver one critical piece earlier, but Mark's team would give Sam's team a different resource that removed a bottleneck later. Mutual benefit. They both got relief. And what changed wasn't just the plan, it was the energy. That's win-win. It reduces hidden resentment. It's like two people carrying a couch up the stairs. If one person keeps trying to win by forcing the pace, both people suffer. If they coordinate, communicate, and adjust, the couch moves easier. And nobody gets crushed. Now, to do win-win consistently, you need the belief that there is enough credit, enough opportunity, enough respect, enough solutions. Scarcity mentality makes everything a competition. Abundance mentality makes room for creativity, because you can't get to win-win if you don't know what the other person actually wants. Habit 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood, because it changes every conversation you have. Most people don't listen to understand. They listen to reply. They're loading their next point while the other person is talking. They're defending, they're correcting, they're waiting for their turn, listening with the intent to deeply understand the other person's perspective, emotions, and meaning. And he ties this to trust, because trust isn't built by being clever. It's built by making someone feel seen. Sam tested this habit in his personal life first because, honestly, that's where it hurts. He had been dating someone for a while and they kept having the same argument, different topic, same pattern. His partner would explain a frustration. Sam would jump into solutions. He'd explain why it wasn't that bad or how they could fix it. And his partner would get colder. Sam thought, I'm being helpful. But after reading this habit, Sam tried one small change. The next time the conversation started, he made himself do something that felt unnatural. He didn't solve. He reflected. He said, so what I'm hearing is, you feel like you're carrying a lot of this alone. And when I jump to solutions, it feels like I'm skipping over how heavy it is for you. Is that right? There was a pause. Then his partner's shoulders dropped, just a little. Eyes, and they said, yes, that's it. And that moment mattered more than any solution Sam could have offered. Because once someone feels understood, they become more open to understanding you. Understanding comes before influence. If you want someone to hear you, hear them first. The trust balance in a relationship. You make deposits through courtesy, respect, keeping promises, listening, and showing appreciation. You make withdrawals through disrespect, broken commitments, sarcasm, and selfishness. When the balance is high, you can make mistakes and recover. When the balance is low, even small issues explode. The balance was already different. So if you can understand people and you can aim for win-win, what becomes possible? That's habit 6. Synergize. Synergy is when the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. It's not compromise. It's creation. Compromise is usually 1 + 1 = 1.5. Both people give up something because you create a third option that didn't exist before. Covey calls it the third alternative. And you only get it when you value differences instead of fearing them. Most teams don't value differences. They tolerate them. They hear disagreement and interpret it as disrespect. They see another viewpoint and assume threat. Synergy says differences are not obstacles. They are ingredients. Sam saw this play out at work during a planning session that was going nowhere. They were trying to solve a customer churn issue. Everyone had their pet explanation. One person blamed pricing, another blamed support, another blamed product features, each person defending their angle. Old Sam would have picked a side and pushed. But Sam tried something else. He wrote each viewpoint on a whiteboard and said, what if all of these are partially true? What if instead of choosing one cause, we build a solution that uses the best of each? Then he asked a question that changed the room. He said, can you guess what would happen if we treated this like a design problem, not a debate? People leaned in. They started stacking ideas instead of competing. Pricing didn't need a full cut. It needed a clearer value ladder. Support didn't need to work harder. It needed a simple onboarding flow that prevented confusion. Product didn't need 10 new features. It needed one change that removed a major friction point. They built a combined plan. And the result wasn't just better. It felt lighter, like the room stopped fighting itself. That's synergy. It's like a band. If everyone plays louder to prove they matter, it becomes noise. But if each instrument plays its role and listens to the others, the music becomes something no single player could create alone. Now, after 6 habits, you might think you're done. Odd, but Covey ends with the habit that keeps everything from decaying. Because even the best system breaks if the person running it breaks. Habit 7 is sharpen the saw. It's renewal. Covey tells a story about someone sawing down a tree in the woods for hours, exhausted, struggling. Someone says, "Why don't you take a break and sharpen the saw?" And the person snaps back, "I don't have time. I'm too busy sawing." That's most people. Too busy producing to renew the tool that produces. Covey says you have 4 dimensions that need renewal: physical, mental, social and emotional, and spiritual. Physical is your body. Sleep, nutrition, movement. Mental is learning, reading, thinking. Social and emotional is relationships, connection, service, empathy. Spiritual is meaning, values, purpose. Whatever connects you to your center. Sharpening the saw isn't a luxury, it's maintenance. And it's the ultimate Quadrant 2 activity. Important, not urgent, until it becomes urgent. Sam hit this wall after a stretch where everything was going well externally. He was performing at work. His relationships were stable, he was hitting goals, but he felt dull, short-fused. Tired in a way sleep didn't fix. And afterward, he felt that quiet shame because he was depleted. So Sam made a simple, almost boring plan. 3 non-negotiables. He'd walk for 20 minutes a day, even if it was slow. He'd read 10 pages at night, not for productivity, just to feed his mind. And once a week, he'd do something that felt spiritual to him. A long, quiet morning without screens, writing in a notebook about what mattered and what he was avoiding. The first week didn't feel dramatic. But by the second week, he noticed something. His reactions softened. His patience grew. His thinking got clearer. It was like cleaning a dirty windshield. The world didn't change, but everything looked easier to navigate. That's sharpen the saw. It's preserving and enhancing the asset you carry everywhere, you. Now, let's zoom out and connect the whole system, because Covey doesn't want you to treat these like 7 separate tricks. They're integrated. Being proactive gives you ownership. Beginning with the end gives you direction. Putting first things first gives you execution. Thinking win-win gives you a healthy relationship paradigm. Seeking first to understand gives you trust and influence. Synergizing gives you creative solutions. Sharpening the saw keeps you capable long-term. And here's the deeper promise. If you live these habits, you stop living like a person who's constantly trying to handle life. You become a person who leads life. You become the kind of person who doesn't just react to the weak. You build the weak. You don't just fight with people, you create outcomes with people. You don't just grind until you break. You renew so you can last. Now, let's make this practical, because ideas are nice, but habits are built through action. Here are a few things you can start doing right now based on everything we covered. First, pick one situation you've been reacting to and draw the line between your circle of concern and circle of influence. Then take one small action inside your influence within the next 24 hours. One email, one conversation, one boundary, one proactive step, but real. Second, write a rough personal mission statement draft, even if it's messy. Then test it against your calendar for the next 7 days. Ask yourself, does my schedule reflect what I say matters? If not, move one important thing into the week on purpose. Third, choose one Quadrant 2 block and protect it like it matters, because it does. That could be planning your week, exercising, learning, or having a conversation you've been avoiding. Don't wait for it to feel urgent. That's the trap. Fourth, in your next tense interaction, aim for win-win by doing one courageous thing and one considerate thing, and ask what they need sincerely. Then stay long enough in the conversation for a third option to appear. Fifth, practice empathetic listening once today. Don't fix. Don't correct. Reflect what you heard and ask if you got it right. You'll feel the difference immediately, and so will they. And finally, pick one way to sharpen the saw this week that you've been postponing. Sleep, movement, learning, quiet time, connection, just one. And let the renewal compound, because that's the real point. Covey isn't trying to give you a productive life. He's trying to give you an effective life. A life where your actions match your values, your relationships become a strength, and your future stops being an accident. And if you're sitting there thinking, okay, but can I actually become that kind of person? Yes, not overnight, not perfectly. You absolutely can. Sam did not become a different human in a week, then another, then building a system that made those responses easier to repeat. That's effectiveness. It's not a personality. It's a practice. That's it for this video. I hope it was useful and gave you something real to think about. Thanks for watching and have a great day.